Well, happy Monday, if that has ever been said in the history of speech to you. This is a brand new stream on Longbox Punk. That's me. I am Chris, and I am joined by Chris. It's going to be a whole lot of just overly double Chrising happening tonight. I can already feel it in my bones, which is totally great. You have a brand new comic that is soon to be launched on Kickstarter called The Refuge Chapter 1 of 4, right? It's of 4?
That's the plan. Maybe 5. But yeah, so far of 4.
Great. And it is an all ages action adventure comic. The covers that I've seen look at, I love the style of the artwork in this book. So I'm excited to talk about all things Refuge with you and all things BentBoxComics and the collaborators and the creatives that you have working with you there. But before we get into any of the nitty gritty, all the things, we at least have to start with your origin story. It is a comics podcast after all. So like, how did you get into comics? How did you start making comics? And then how did we end up here in 2025 with all of the things that you've got going on?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, first off.
Absolutely.
So I've kind of done the circuit here and there. So some people, forgive me if you've heard this before, but my origin story started with so my dad was actually an inker for Marvel way back in the day, early 80s. So my childhood, I was born in 89. So my childhood was just filled with Marvel everything. So we had long boxes. We had a walk-in closet, not for clothes. It was for comics.
Amazing.
And it was amazing. And the cool thing was he collected comics with his dad and his brother. Actually, I don't think I've ever mentioned this, but they had been doing that since he was like my age. Like, since he was born, they were collecting comics. So it was an insane collection of comics. Everything back from like early Spider-Man, Superman, across every single, DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, whenever that got started, everything. So like he just had everything, and it was incredible growing up around that.
Yeah.
He was an insanely talented artist. I had on my bedroom wall like a mural of Spider-Man on like one side, like imagine like over there you go, like Spider-Man right here, and then all of his villains on this side. Not all, but you know what I mean, like a lot, like Kingpin, Lizard, Venom, Green Goblin. I'm trying to remember, but anyway, they were like all like coming at him. He's going at them. A nice like action panel, but the size of your wall.
That's awesome.
It was incredible. So that was how I grew up, was everything, pop culture, comics. That was just life. And then the twist, the Uncle Ben part, not as tragic, but but my dad ended up leaving when I was like 8. And we ended up, my family just kind of dropped everything pop culture-y, and like I used to draw caricatures of actors as we watched movies together, like Demolition Man. I did a caricature of all the characters in there, like Sandra Bullock and everything. So like I love to draw. I was following after my dad, and then he left, and I literally just stopped drawing. I used to write, stopped writing, just stopped. So that was kind of the sucky part, and it was just kind of this part of this section of my life that was just, whether it was on purpose or subconscious, just kind of like dropped all that.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, maybe 4 years ago now, maybe my buddy John, who he used to be a co-owner of BentBox. He actually dropped out, not for any bad reasons, but just to take care of a lot of like family things. He's having a kid. He's focusing on all that, which I'm wishing him the best. But he actually got started with comics a couple of, like 4 or 5 years ago, like really in depth with The Last Wand. I've always been a very creative person. I love storytelling. I've dabbled into like indie video game creation, screenplay. I've just always loved that just creating. Seeing him be able to like write, a comic book, the last one won, and then next thing you know, it's in my hand. I'm like, holy crap, this is something I can do. Like, you can do this.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people out there have attempted to make their own video game. It's not easy. Like, it's a challenge. So, by no means are comics like easier, but it did feel like oh man, the barrier to entry is lower. The ability to actually get ideas on paper is easier, or at least quicker. So yeah, I just jumped into comics and kind of fell back into what was the first 8 years of my life anyway.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so then I wrote my first comic, Artificial One, with an insanely talented artist, Gabriel Fonseca, out of Brazil. This was his first comic he's ever done. We kind of took a chance on each other. We kind of talked about it, went over our similarities. We had a nice fun meeting and kind of geeked out over pop culture, which is fun because there's also like a language barrier there, but we're still able to pop different references at each other.
Yeah.
It was just, it was a blast making my first comic. And so thankfully it was so much fun. Now I have the bug and here we are.
And then you fell madly in love with making comics and now are just churning them out all the time. And
so much fun.
Yeah. Why stop at one story when you can make all of the stories?
That's yeah. I don't know if that's the best idea, but speaking of like my background, like screenplays, video games, everything that I used to do when I was like, oh, I'm going to make comics now. I literally had like a Google Doc of page after page after page after page of just like log line idea, base idea, and I could just go like scroll that one. And then I have some. So unfortunately, I have so many ideas that, I'm kind of I have a lot coming out, but it's fun.
That's a good problem to have, at least from a creative standpoint. Maybe not from the execution, funding, financial standpoint.
Financial, it's a little challenging, but being able to be like, oh man, I got a lot of ideas, so I'm not worried about running out of those. But money's a different thing.
Yeah. That's time, right? Like
and
figuring out, not just because I similarly have that master giant Google Doc of all of the ideas that come to me randomly. Then I'm like, I gotta capture that because that sounds really fun. Like that could be something. And I forget what, I think it was a movie or something that it might have been a show, but it was a reoccurring bit of like, they would say something like just a random idea. It's like, is this something? And it was like, they, spit out whatever, like two chameleons, like fighting over a roll of toilet paper. And they're like blending. Is there something here? And it was just a common, like random things would get thrown out. And so from that, I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to write down everything and then I'll revisit it later. And if it's something, I'll keep it. If it's not, like, I'll wait and come back to it again and see.
It might turn into something. I did a lecture at a local high school recently, and I was talking about just like how ideas come to you, and they were asking questions about that. And thankfully I had like a snapshot of my Google Doc, and I was like, it's not like I'm churning out genius ideas. I was like, here's a screenshot of my Google Doc. I was like, there's a title there, and right underneath it, I asked the student, I was like, what does it say underneath this title? And it says, need more ideas. I was like, that's it. I was like, I didn't even know what the story would be. I was just like, I had an interesting title idea, so I made sure I write it down real fast. I was like, that's just, like you said, like capturing everything. If you have an idea, you never know what it could turn into, so just write it down.
Yeah. Yep. But then like my problem is I get stuck in the writing down ideas part. And then I'm like, no, I actually need to like do something with these.
One. Yeah, for sure.
Like, I got to pull that trigger and actually make the thing. Cause I'm a perfect procrastinator. Like I'm really good at that.
Really
and
good.
I always have been. I don't know if I've ever talked about I was an English minor in college because I took so many English classes that I was like, I just take like 2 more and I have a minor, right? Cool. Okay, cool. Like I'll do that. But one of them, we had like the final class that I took. I graduated at the end of summer because I was doing summer classes because I had 9 majors. I went to 3 universities. It's a whole thing. And so I got to the point where I was finally ready to graduate, but I had 1 English class left. It was like a master's level class. And even after doing like 6 years of classes, I still only graduated with a bachelor's. So now I'm like telling my daughter, listen, you need to like stick with something and make sure you're doing the right thing the first time and don't be like me, because it's hard. But I was doing internet radio at the time for the college radio station. And so I literally, like, the day that the paper was due, I hadn't even started it. And I showed up at the station and I, hit live at like 8 a.m. I was like, listen, I'm just going to make a paper live on air. I've never done that. I need to listen to music and like, I need to get this done. I didn't have a computer at home. So I was like, I'm going to be on campus anyway. And so I was banging it out, and other DJs would come in and do their show, and it would be like live check-ins with Chris. And it was like, hey, where are you at now? And so it had to be turned in by 5. At 4:30, I'm like running across campus to go to my professor's office to turn it in. And I get there and she was like, having had you for like 4 other classes, I shouldn't be surprised by this. But the fact that you spent all day writing this paper on air.
Yeah.
And now you're turning it in. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? She was like, what do you think I listen to when I'm waiting for students' paper? Like, I just turned on the student radio station and I heard you, so I just listened. I'm like, oh.
That's pretty cool though. Just like live streaming your homework.
I was like, we're just gonna go through it, and like, what, I don't even remember what the paper was, but I banged out like 8 pages and a full like bibliography and all the things. Like that day, I work best when I'm under pressure, and so I just sometimes setting myself deadlines. And like, even with all the comic books that people have been emailing me, like, hey, can you do a review? I'm like, yeah, please, like, keep sending it. I love doing reviews, anything to boost the signal for you. And then I had all of these in inbox full, right? But then I just was like, I have so many. And I got overwhelmed with how many I had, that then I was like, my wife was like, babe, you like lists, like make a list and just go. And so I set myself like deadlines for when I wanted stuff published. And now suddenly I'm like releasing and reading all these books that I've been having sit in my inbox. But I don't know. I don't know why I'm telling you all of these things.
No, it's good. We're 2 Chris's of the same cloth. It's very similar because I mean, I need to have a list and a schedule. And if I don't, who the heck knows when I'm going to get around to anything. So
right. Were you also born in April? Are you a Taurus?
No, I'm a Leo.
Ooh, I don't have anything to go with Leo for that. Perfect.
That's why.
We're 2 Chris's. You're also the second bearded glasses bald guy that I've had in 2 consecutive days. So I'm not saying I have a type.
I mean, it's a popular look, man. Us millennials, we get to a certain age and the hair falls out. We gotta pivot.
That's
hard
right.
Pivot.
Man, I'm not looking forward to it. I'm starting to
with that hair. What the heck? I mean, you're fine. I think you're gonna be good. I was screwed. This dropped out when I was 22. So I'm 35. It's been a rough, 13 years.
See, I started getting the gray and the silver when I was 16. And so
looks
now
good, though,
at 38, I'm like, I'm just going to like let it go. You know what I mean?
It looks good. You're good.
Thank you.
All right.
We
can move on.
Comics. You're right. Absolutely. So let's start first with BentBoxComics, and then we'll get into Refuge. So like how when you were creating comics, and like, were you just like, so I have all these stories, how do I publish them? I'll just make my own publisher. Like, is that what you did? How did that come about?
Kind of. Yeah. So like, the funny thing about BentBox was it actually started as me and one of my other buddies, his nickname's Rhino, but we'll just call him Rhino. But me and one of my other high school buddies, Rhino, used to do 3D modeling. Like I said, I've done game design stuff before. Yeah. So we literally were trying to figure out like a name brand for something that would work with like 3D modeling and asset creation as just a side hustle, because that's what I was doing before comics. And so BentBox, I don't know if anyone knows anything about game design or anything, but that has something to do with a bevel tool and yada, yada. So it kind of stuck with me that I really liked the branding BentBox. I just liked it. That never went anywhere. Then John showed me comics, and it kind of just came about of, okay, I want to make my own. I definitely, I've always been, the majority of my life, I've been in like a marketing role when it comes to like my day job.
Okay.
So I understand branding and how important that is. So yeah, I kind of leaned into the branding side of things. I was like, okay, before I even put words on this paper, I love the name BentBox, so we're pivoting with that. We're sticking with BentBoxComics now. And I kind of like started calling back to the idea of like those long boxes, and they're just stuffed in theory you should be treating them much better. But technically, I mean, like my walk-in closet was filled with bent boxes.
Yeah.
Just all these comics filled in there, just like to the brim. So it was a lucky crossover, we'll call it that. So we stuck with the brand BentBox. I made my first comic, successfully funded. It wasn't by any means quote unquote successful. If anyone's done comics, you kind of understand that, you're chasing profit for a while. So, but thankfully I wanted to use whatever funds I had personally to just create the book. It was all done before the Kickstarter even launched. That way, the second it ended, I was shipping those books out to everyone. I wanted to kind of start off on a good foot, build some trust with fans and the community. So that went pretty well. Then John, the ex co-founder of BentBox, but at this point, just I was calling my like creative partner. But he and it's self-admitted, he went through a handful of rebranding. Like he had like Unity Comics, and then actually I don't remember them all, but he had a couple, different monikers he was going under.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I mean, first off, we're 45 minutes. No, we're like 30 minutes away from each other. We live close by. We hang out every once in a while. We play Xbox every Friday night. So I said, why are we working separately? I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. So I pitched him on joining BentBox and starting it together. He already had a decent library put together. So it kind of created a library under BentBox. We were able to kind of point towards, a stack of books that you could associate with the brand. So that's kind of how that started. Now, how we got to where we're at now is, once again, this calls back to people. If you are familiar with making comics or are an indie creator, that good luck getting 2 books out a year, let alone or 1 book out a year, let alone 2.
Yeah.
And if you really want to be semi-competitive, or at least within the zeitgeist of comics, people remembering Artificial 1, then 2, then 3, being able to keep up that hype, you kind of have to keep a schedule, and it's difficult, monetarily.
Yeah.
So John and I kind of had the idea of like, we could just do our own books, but what if we reached out to other creators that have a really high quality product that we can kind of work with them. We can help publish, we can help print, ship it out. We can create an online store. So kind of we're investing in a company that allows other creators like Jeff Morris with True Believer, John Roscoe with Orium, to kind of join us and be able to build a brand based around quality. That's kind of the whole premise. And the cool thing is, a little side note, like some of the people that I've run into, or like TikTokers and stuff like that, we'll kind of reach out to those, yourself included. Potentially, I'll try and get you some books to review. But we've ran into a couple TikTokers that like they bought 4 of our books. We have like 11, which is great.
Yeah.
But they bought like 4 of our books, and the next video said, what was it, like verbatim? It was, I bought 4 books from BentBox. I see they have like 6 more. They're like, I know they're going to be good. And when they said that, I was like, cool. I was like, I think we didn't hit the nail on the head yet. Like we're not like blown up, but we hit that branding recognition of like someone seeing one of our books and going like, dang, this is pretty good. The art style's solid. The story's hopefully good. I'm in charge of that part. So I don't want to, toot my horn too much, but hopefully good. Sure. And then obviously it's out on time and accessible. So, we have started to build a brand based around quality. No drama, no politics, no anything, just comics, just fun stories, escapism, that kind of deal. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. Is we've brought on so many different creators, and we've able to build a library that I think we don't have any stinkers. Like everyone's a banger, if you ask me, at least. So
that's awesome. So I love the couple things that I want to unpack. So that like going after creators of a high quality, is it purely based on like your experience reading their work? Or like, how did you, were there like conversations with them to see if they would be a good fit with BentBox?
I would love to say I'm that, uh, you know, I really dive in that well, or do things that, well, but most of them, like say, Orium
Yeah.
with John Orozco, if anyone's familiar with that, I love it. It's a really cool, it's like a psychological thriller noir book. Beautiful art. The storytelling's cool. I really like the setting and direction it's going. That was just one where we started. He showed 2 or 3 pages online on Twitter, and I really like the art style. Honestly, I get attracted to art style. Art style trumps almost everything. Now, if the story sucks, like I'm not saying Orium's story sucked by any means. It was good, but there were moments where, thankfully, he trusted me to kind of be like a collaborative effort to where, like, I read through it almost as an editor, helped him workshop it a little bit. That way it was better. But the art style was so cool. The setting was really cool. It was his first comic he's ever done. And so I was just like, hey, you want to join BentBox? What do you think? I was like, and all it's really doing at this moment is you have a little logo on the top right here. That's it. That's all it is. But it allows us to be like, hey, here's another comic from BentBox. So it slowly started avalanching into that, to where now we have Jeff Morris, who, once again, was the same thing. I saw a piece of one of his books called Dirt Mountain, and it was phenomenal. And he's not the artist, he's the writer, but it was this very touching story, and the art was incredible. And so I just reached out, said, hey man, I'm starting a publishing house. Would you be interested in joining? So, it's just been, more times than not, it's more of just like, I see something that tweaks my interest or piques my interest. Something that looks out of the ordinary. No offense to anyone doing like your typical superhero comic or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you've noticed, we don't really have any of those on BentBox, just because it, the market's a little oversaturated with them a little bit. And so when I see things that are out of the norm, unique stories with good art, expect a DM. That typically is how it works.
That's
so
cool. And to get like really into the weeds here, I hope you don't mind. Like
I love it.
When you're having these conversations with the creatives, like, is there any like expectation from their side or from your side of like, hey, by putting my, the BentBox logo in the top corner, like X is going to like, what is there like a contract signing type thing? Like, are you building contracts with these creators, or is it all like the handshake 50s, like we're doing business now?
We are now business. It's a little bit of that. Now, it started that way because, I didn't have anything contractual set up. I didn't have even anything like substantial to offer. But I was being very upfront with everyone. I said, my thought right here is I can put out Artificial 1 this year, maybe Artificial 2 next year. John's got Wingless 1 coming out, Blossom. He's got a couple coming out. I was like, I would love to be able to be like, hey, while you wait for Artificial 2, Orium 1's coming out in April. And then while you wait for our Orium 2, True Believers coming out in October. And that's how I've kind of like talked to people about it. And I was like, I'm really just building a brand based on quality. That's kind of why I got really excited when that one TikToker was literally like, oh man, this book was from BentBox. That book's from BentBox. I'm going to get it because it's quality. So it wasn't even, and that's how I was pitching my to the creatives. I said, my goal is, if you put a BentBox logo on the top left, right, bottom left, wherever, but if someone sees that, then hopefully it incentivizes them to buy it, mainly because it's already linked to other quality projects. That was my offering of like, this is how I'm going to benefit you. But it was just saying like, hey, we're going to start building a brand. Now we've gotten to a point where we actually have some people interested that like actively want to join. So we are at the point now where we have a website created. We invest in a lot of money in, that's really nice and solid, really sleek, works well. We have plans to distribute And so now we're trying to offer a lot more benefit to people joining BentBox while still remaining fairly small. And, mom and poppy is kind of, we're still just, all those books are just mine. I got some books in the closet that are John's and everyone else's. So, we're still just kind of doing it out of our office, but, we're working our way to contractual. I think we're going to get there soon, as soon as we bring on more people. But at the moment, it's kind of handshaky. It's a little 50s.
Yeah.
Which is something I like. I like that. That's more me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely that side, as opposed to shocker, big legalese contracts and stuff.
Yeah.
I look at it, I'm like, where do I sign? I don't know, man.
Yeah. And that's why Jeff Morris, who was one of the ones who trusted us to join, I even asked him, he said, you should start working on contracts, basically because he like, I give him all the profits of his books. If I take it to the con, I just go, hey man, you sold 5 books today. Here's $50. And I Venmo money. And I try and make sure that, mainly because I want to support him trusting in me. And also I sell everyone's books. I try and sell people's books more than my own, just because I do feel, I don't want to be caught like, I don't know, favoritism or anything like that. Yeah. But if you join BentBox, I'm typically probably going to be pushing yours more than artificial. But all that said, he's the one who actually is like, you should start working on contracts. Thankfully, he's done that in the past, just for like his 9-to-5 job. So he's actually helping me work on one right now. That's going to be kind of the baseline. So
nice.
It's going to start getting a little bit more corporate-y, but still mom and pop. I just want to make good comics. I just want really cool stuff. You have all the creative liberty as the creator. That's it.
That's cool. Yeah. And I love too that your focus is on quality and getting quality creators, because that establishes brand recognition, that establishes trust, that establishes so many benefits for like the name BentBox, and then just being associated with that is like, oh, they put out quality comics. You must be a quality creator. Like that's all of those things are two-way wins. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. So take me through like where did Refuge come from? Because the Kickstarter is in pre-launch. The pre-launch page is linked in this episode description, so you can follow it. You're going to launch when you get to 200 followers.
That's the plan. Yep.
If you want the book sooner than later, follow the project, and then you'll get the launch, and we'll be all in for that. But like, where did Refuge come from? Because the story idea, like the premise of it, is a super fascinating one to me. So I'm curious, like, where this came from.
Yeah, once again, it started as I think that was one of the single word title Google Doc situations. I remember having just Refuge, and then underneath it, need meat, like need something. I don't know what, but need something. So it was one of those ones where I just liked the name Refuge, and I was like, I wonder what I can do with that. Then the reason why it started, or the way it started to kind of come to fruition, is if anyone's interested in some of the stuff we do at BentBox, feel free to go check out the website. But the reason why I bring that up is this is a long story, but we'll get there. One of the things that we noticed that was happening in the indie community is there's a lot of drama and infighting and gatekeeping and crap, just garbage that doesn't need to be there, or it's stuff that sells, unfortunately, that sells books, off of a cult of personality, or just like someone having a hot take. And John and I were literally sitting in these chairs right behind me, just hanging out, talking about the business, what we wanted to do, how we wanted the brand to grow, all these different ideas. And we both were like, how can we create a brand that is synonymous with quality, but also synonymous with not only just not drama, but the antithesis, like good, like helping, like charity. We started like just throwing around ideas. I've always been very charitable with my money. Like I just don't care about money too much, which is probably why I don't have a lot of it. But we started, as we were talking, we're like, well, Blossom, which is, I highly recommend. It's free on Global Comics, but it's a book John wrote after his daughter was stillborn. So it's a very deep story that he invested a lot of heart into. And the whole purpose behind it was he wanted to give back because his daughter was born with cleft lip and palate. And that was part of the reason why she was stillborn. And so he found a really great foundation called the Smile Train Foundation. He decided to give all of the proceeds for the Blossom Kickstarter to that foundation, which is really cool, outside of printing and everything.
Yeah.
And then when he decided to do that, it was a light bulb situation where we're like, hey, why don't we create an incentive on BentBox.com called Comics for a Cause. And we can link our books, because we started noticing different books had different like trauma reasons behind writing it, or they were dealt with very dark like material matter. That one, it's a very pretty and beautiful book, but it's based on a stillborn and suicide, and it's a very deep story that he wanted to kind of impact people around the world with Smile Train. And then he had one called Wingless, which is about a bird born without wings, and it was kind of this idea to give back to disabled children through this organization called Tiny Superheroes. I believe that's what it's called. Anyway, so we developed this initiative, and if you go to BentBox.com, you can see it, Comics for a Cause. That got me interested in refugee crisis. I didn't have many books that could really give back in the way that John was doing. And so as I went back through my Google Doc, I saw Refuge, and my wheels just started turning to where I was like, okay, let's go with Soviet era child soldier, displaced, his family's I'm gonna give away a lot, but that's fine. It's fine. It's not really super important to like reading throughout the book, but hey, here's a little backstory. But family's been killed in the war. He's stuck on the battlefield. He's trying to escape. He's running through the forest. I'm literally just like kind of spitballing ideas of like what would be happening in this comic book.
Yeah.
I'm like, he's running through the forest. He sees this mountaintop, this snow-covered mountaintop. He runs up to it. He finds refuge inside of this cave along the side. He burrows as far as he can in, as he hears like gunshots and the enemy soldiers coming in on him. And so like I'm like kind of thinking all this through, and then I'm like, okay, well, what's the hook? And I'm like, okay, I want to bring like a mythological aspect to this. So he runs into a terrifying monster inside of this cave, an otherworldly presence. This leads him to venture further into the cave, coming through on the other side to this mystical world of giants. And this beast that he's run into actually is just a child like him who's lost from his parents. And so it turns into this adventure of them trying to bring this beast back to his mom and dad. But it's this world filled with nightmares and creatures that are otherworldly and everything like that. So that's how it started snowballing, and it started developing in that way. And I got really excited about the idea, and I thought there was something there. I showed John. He definitely thought there was something there. So I was, that's why I call him kind of a creative partner. He kind of helps. We bounce ideas off each other.
Yeah.
Found a really talented artist. Once again, Gabriel Fonseca is from Brazil. He did Artificial 1 and 2, as well as Blossom as well. We like Brazilian artists. I don't know if anyone has seen that through line, but the majority of our books are from Brazilian artists. They're just good, and not good in a traditional way. They're good in a unique way. They have a style about them that, like, if you see it, you're like, oh, that's a Brazilian artist. You know what I mean? It's nice to be able to have that breath of fresh air with their art. Yeah. It's not just like, who's this that looks like his and his and his and his and hers and his and hers. It's just theirs, and it's amazing. So I found this guy, Lucas Jensen. This is his first comic as well. That's another thing I look for, is kind of diamonds in the rough. No offense, I want someone who has a lot of experience, but then I enjoy working with someone who just loves comics and being creative and is talented, and no one's given them a chance yet. So that's kind of the people I seek out. Yeah. So anyway, I found Lucas Jensen. He put together some thumbnails for me. They look incredible. I got very excited about the project. He's super excited about the project. He's very invested into it. So yeah, that's how Refuge kind of came to be, was almost like, let's figure out another book that we could tie into our Comics for a Cause initiative that helps the brand stand out with like the infighting and garbage that happens in the indie comics community. Maybe we could be, a brand that does good.
Yeah.
So, and then the part on top of that, real fast, I don't know if anyone noticed this by looking at the Kickstarter, but you will see there are no speech bubbles. So I originally had planned to have, I mean, it would be difficult because it'd be a beast talking to a kid, and there would be this fun, maybe interaction there. So I slowly started moving away from that, because I was thinking, okay, if this can go towards a refugee crisis, or potentially these books could support, like any kid in the world could pick this up. How could I do that? And it'd be by removing the speech bubbles, having it be basically a wordless comic other than sound effects.
Yeah.
But that in of itself was a huge challenge, trying to figure out how to pace that correctly. You have so much disposition you can put into a comic. You can just have a single panel that gives 90% of the story and you're good.
Yeah.
This, I can't do that. I have to show everything. And it was a challenge, but it was a lot of fun. So I think we're doing well with it. But that was one of my main reasons was, if this actually has a way to benefit displaced children in the world, that in like war-torn countries or anything like that, the fact that they can just pick it up and it's just a book that anyone can read.
That's so cool,
kind of
dude.
the reason behind it.
I love so much about that. Like, I was going to ask you about the Comics for a Cause, because it's not something that I see happening with a lot of like the indie publishers. And so like seeing that on your website and seeing the comics that were there, and it not just being like, yeah, we'll donate 10% of this one title that we have, like there's multiple titles, and then your intentionality of creating Refuge to be part of that as well. Like just yes, dude. And then
Good,
like having a silent comic with the subject matter of the refugee kids and the families and everything, like making that silent intentionally to be able to reach a broader audience is outstanding. So like I love your approach to all of this and to making it, and looking at the Kickstarter pre-launch page, which again is linked in the description. Like that artwork is so freaking good. Like I was not at all expecting you to be like, yeah, this is his first comic. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, man, he's good. These Brazilians are good.
Yeah. Like, so how did you find him? Like, was it perusing Instagram?
Basically, so Instagram is a huge, so like if you're looking to make your first book or trying to find artists, especially as a writer, Instagram's huge. Honestly, I found Gabriel Fonseca off of Behance. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but that's like an Adobe platform that's not super used. Kind of like an ArtStation type deal. But I found him. I saw like some Spider-Man artwork that he did, and I was like, oh, this is cool. This is different. And that was the main reason why I got attracted to his art. So yeah, I think, let's see, Lucas was probably Twitter, to be honest. Or maybe it was Instagram. Sorry, I don't know which one, but that is basically, peruse is a great word. And that is exactly what I do. Or hunt or peruse. Yeah. It depends on my intentionality in the moment. If I'm like really wanting to find that artist, I'm hunting. But otherwise, if I'm just like, lazy Saturday scrolling and I see something that, piques my interest. I don't know why I keep saying tweaks, but piques my interest. I just do not hesitate to reach out. But yeah, just try, and Instagram's kind of cool with that. You can search in their search line. You can put in like comic book artist or illustrator, and it'll funnel through all the people who have that in their bio. Yeah. And you can kind of just look through, and then honestly, I like kind of try and filter based on follower count. I try and find the people with the lowest followers. Like, it's cool that I'm different in that way. I'm like, it's cool that you have 10,000 followers, but you have books. I see the books. You have a ton of books. Good for you. And then I find this guy who's got 200 followers, and I'm like, this stuff's good. I was like, I'd rather use you, and let's make something together, because I'm still new too. I don't want to be like, I know what I'm doing. too much. So it's kind of fun. I make it a very collaborative effort.
Yeah.
I've said this in other podcasts and shows that I give an insane amount of leeway to my artists. I give them a ton of creative liberty. So I say, here's the page. And if I say it, I was like, if you have a better idea for how this panel should go, or if you think we should add a panel here or take this panel out altogether, give me your idea. Let's talk about it. They'll pitch it. I'll be like, yeah, no, I like that's a better idea than what I even wrote. Good call.
Yeah.
Remove this panel, add that panel. I like it. And that's kind of how the books that I work on come to be. Is I make it a very collaborative effort.
That's cool. Yeah, and that it feels like that's always a very delicate balance to find of like if you have a very direct vision for the book.
True.
Or like for a page layout or something, and then the artist comes back and it's like, oh no, but we could do that. Like, at what point do you find, and this is just me thinking out loud now, like,
yeah,
at what point do you like have the conversation or like, yeah, but I had this vision, like I trust you and I want to see what you're doing because like you're the artist, so I obviously brought you on for a reason.
For sure.
But also like I feel like this needs to be laid out. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you find that balance?
That's just it. I mean, it's like any good marriage. Communication is key, and and I think I've talked about this on my own podcast that we release every Friday. But like we had a whole segment on just humility, and I don't know how far I want to get into that, but humility's a good virtue to have. It allows for a lot of conflict resolution. It allows for a lot of relationship problems to be resolved. It's just a good thing to have, and especially when you're in a creative environment or a collaborative environment, having a lot of communication and humility to be able to be like, hey man, whatever the best idea is, that's the idea we're going with. Not hey man, this is my book. What are you doing giving me thoughts on this page? Shut up and draw. Here's $20. It's not that. It can't be that. If it is, then you're going to end up with a piece of crap.
Yeah.
So that said, I have had, it hasn't been frequent, but I've had maybe 2 or 3 situations with Gabriel on Artificial as we worked through 1 and 2, where he is like, I don't know. I think he presented me with a different, like completely different angle for a panel once. And I'm like, what happened here? And he goes, I thought it would look better this way. And I'm like, okay. But I just was, I think we respected each other. So as long as you respect each other and show that respect, just be honest. And you just be like, I like it. It is cool. I to be honest though, I wrote it this way mainly because I really wanted to see this angle, maybe with this backdrop. I like what you have. How about let's think about another area we could use that later. I was like, maybe we could use that later in a different scenario. And let's just keep with the original thumbnail for this one. There you go. And typically, as long as you have someone who's trusting and, on board for the project, typically they'll be like, okay, sounds good. It's just treat each other good, just work together. Be able to kill your darlings. That's a good one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, every once in a while you do have a vision. You have like, no man, this panel needs to be this specific layout because this is probably the only panel in this whole book that I mentally was like, I saw it. You know what I mean? Like this is how it needs to be. So don't tweak it. You have those, and you just have to, you say, no, I'd rather be like this. But then you compliment sandwich it. You say, I like what you did. It's really cool, but let's stick with what I got. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
That'd be nice.
I think that like the 2 things that I think are key that you just said is the like respect each other and like just be good to each other and like listening and hearing and not just the like you screwed up everything, throw it all like that's it seems so simple saying it out loud of just be kind and like stay humble and not the like TikTok like stay humble bro, all that whatever.
Yeah, hashtag humble.
Like not that nonsense, like genuine humility of like you're
not the smartest person in the room probably most of the time, by the way. And so and when you're working with someone who's as talented as some of those people that we work with, like you said, I trust them to do the best job. Like I the reason why I have you drawing this book is because you're good. And so like, I trust your opinion.
Yeah.
You're wrong on this panel, and that's okay. We can move on. But otherwise, you know, like, yeah, I give them so much weight because they deserve it.
Yeah. That's cool. I like it. I like it. I like it. And then like making this all ages as well, like was it hard for you? Because you've done all sorts of different stories before Refuge,
Hmm.
right? Like you're not always playing in the all ages area. So like was it hard for you when you were creating like the monster and then getting into this world of giants with all of these nightmares and all the things? Like was it hard for you to keep it framed in the all ages? Did you ever have a moment of like, I could really go bonkers, bananas, like horror into this?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Like,
yeah.
how do you scale that back? And do you do anything with the extra stuff that you're like, I can't go that far?
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I'm doing pretty well at maintaining kind of like, sometimes when you set a project up, you in theory should have some form of like world building done within your head, or almost like a rules in which your world exists. So
Yep.
this is an all ages book. So there's already a rule set kind of built in whenever I decide to do that project. So I kind of, you know, if something goes like, whoa, bud, that's an R-rated idea. Let's not do that one. Typically those filter out as I write. That said, you know, I'm a big fan of like your old school Disney, your Don Bluth, your, you know, the Bambi's mom died, and you know, everyone's dying in those old Disney movies, and
Yeah.
it wasn't subtle. It was rough. And they also, the thing I really loved about a lot of those old movies is they let you sit in that for long periods of time, long scenes. Typically that is your cat, you know, it's your Uncle Ben situation. That is your catalyst for the character even going on this adventure or anything.
Yep.
So that was kind of my not, it wasn't a struggle. It was a, kids, you know, they're tougher than we think.
Yeah.
You know, I have two kids of my own. I have a 11-year-old girl and a 9-year-old boy, and you know, they're tougher than you think, and sometimes they need to be allowed to go through life. And there's things in this book that as I was writing it, I was like kind of thinking of them, and I was thinking of you know, a child soldier, and I'm like, I don't know, it was one of those like mental things of kind of like coddling this story. But I'm like, no, man, this kid's going through something, and other kids have gone through this. Like, it's not a, it might be a tightrope that I'm walking for sure. But, you know, like, there's a situation, it's showed in the preview on Kickstarter, but, you know, the kid gets shot in like the first 2 pages. It's obviously, it's just a flesh wound. But still, like we went back and forth on blood. We're like, there's going to be a trail of blood in the snow leading to this. It's going to be a really impactful frame, a really impactful panel. I want to make sure this is in it. And even, you know, Lucas was like, blood, are you sure? I was like, yeah. I was like, it's not gore.
Yeah.
But it's blood. You know, we had conversations about the idea of a gun being in the thing. And I'm like, he's a soldier. He's a child. This is the premise of the book.
Yeah.
We can't really coddle kids too much. So I do stand behind it being an all ages book, but it tackles, you know, a death of a family. It tackles war. It tackles all the like PTSD type stuff, but within like the framing of a child.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of heavy elements into it that, I mean, to be honest, we can leave to the parents to read to their children and to tackle it in a way that they want as they go through it with the kid. Otherwise, if it's a kid who has his own book and is just going through it, I'm not too worried about that. Now there are, I will say, quick spoiler is I was working on the main antagonist within the world of monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this, it's kind of an or like an embodiment of PTSD that is like this. It's scary. Let me just say that as I'm writing it, I'm like, okay, this might be too dark. And so now I have to figure out, I have to work with Lucas to kind of use this very dark premise and present it in a way that isn't terrifying, but it is at least an antagonist, scary, a presence. So that's kind of a tightrope we're going to walk in issue 2. But yeah, it's like this nightmare creature that only comes in the dark, and it has like a very, I don't know if anyone's ever watched Fern Gully vibe, that like molten oil monster.
Yeah, Tim Curry.
Yeah. If only, I would love to have him voice this thing, to be honest. It'd be awesome. But yeah, that's kind of going to be this overarching shadow that follows the characters as they progress through the story. So we're dealing with a lot of dark things. I do stand behind it that it's all ages, but it's going to be that old school way of, not pulling any punches while still being very delicate with the source material and allowing, it to be read well, hopefully. But yeah. It's a good question, because it just made me immediately triggered to that thought of, I was writing the nightmare monster, and I'm writing this flashback sequence of Pavel, who is the main character, having a dream sequence of war, and just this nightmarish ghoul standing over his body as he sleeps, because I want that. It's going to be a picture in issue 2. And I'm like, man, this could get real scary real quick, but that's okay.
Yeah, and
maybe.
And I love to, like, as a parent yourself, like you nailed it with the, like, we can't always protect our kids from everything, because like they're experiencing things that we can't protect them from.
Yeah.
When they're not with us anyway. So like at some point, they have to face defeat. They have to face heartbreak. They've got to go through that stuff. And like my daughter's 18, and watching, like, she's always lived with her mom, and so that's been a challenge in itself. But it comes to that point of like, I know I can't be there with her every step of every day, and like that's totally fine. But when I was younger and she was younger, it wasn't fine, and I had to wrestle with that and learn, like, oh, she's okay, and like everything's going to be fine, and she's dealing with stuff, and I dealt with stuff as a kid too, if I think about it. And so like, I don't know why we always have that false fallacy of like, I can protect them from everything, I'm never going to let it, like, no, stuff's going to happen, and stuff happened to you and to your parents and to their parents. Like, it's just this constant thing, and it's just
life, man. Life is life. And that's why I had a conversation with my wife not that long ago, where, I mean, this is a parenting podcast now, but where it kind of goes in line with this, where I said, I didn't have an easy childhood. Like, we were very poor. My dad left my mom to she was a single parent. She had to work all the time, so I had to take care of my sisters, at the age of 8. So that's kind of how everything kept going. Pull behind the curtain, she struggled with alcoholism, and that led to a lot of problems. So my childhood was not, I mean, people have it worse than me, 100%. And that's kind of where you kind of mentally keep your perspective on life. It's like, it could always be worse. Trust me. But still, that doesn't negate some of the things. So like, I've had that conversation with my wife. I was like, I didn't have a dad. I don't know what the heck I'm doing with my kids, because I don't have an example for it. You know what I mean? I didn't have that example. And then I start going like, there are areas where we coddle our children and we go like, I don't want them to experience this heartache, this problem that they just ran into. How can I take that away from them? I was like, no. I was like, and then that is such a weird struggle as a parent, because the more I think about it, thankfully, I'm where I am and better off because of all those struggles I went through. They made me who I am. Yeah. And like, if any of those were taken away from me that I didn't have to experience, I don't know if it would benefit me positively. Yeah. Maybe, but it makes you wonder, especially when you're in charge of another human. It's a trip, man.
It's terrifying.
It's terrifying. And you just have to be like, oh, you scraped your knee, suck it up, dude. Yeah. And then it's sometimes like, it's okay, buddy. It's okay. Yeah. And then other times like, dude, suck it up. And you have to walk that weird line. Yeah, for real.
Yep.
Anyway, it's fun.
It is like it's super rewarding, and having
For
gone
sure.
through like similarly, like I came from a broken home. We're all, I feel like all millennials are like children of
Yeah.
divorce at this point.
Yeah.
But like going through that, and then I was like surprise parent at 19, and I was like, shit, I don't think her mom's the person. And like, God, now I'm going to leave my child with the trauma that I dealt with. And like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. But then also, like, that doesn't mean that I can't still, like, my dad is still in the picture, like
Hmm.
I did the like 2 Christmases and every other weekend stuff. And so it was like,
Just more presence. I mean,
yeah,
what
like
we
I can
complain
still
about?
be
I'm just
there.
kidding. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Two, you only had one Christmas,
How about you're
loser.
welcome? Can we
Yeah.
get a you're welcome, please? Yeah. Dark humor also helps me move on.
Oh, oh yeah, I'm definitely God,
Another
what's the
millennial
word for
trait,
that? It's like trauma bonding of like, yeah, like, oh,
basically. Yeah.
you had a single mom raise you too? Well, okay, cool.
Yeah. Good
Yeah,
times, man.
man, it's all just like, that's why comics are great, because we
Yeah,
like
it's awesome.
having the escapism. And I know you mentioned it earlier of like, having just something different in the comics that you're putting out, and
Yeah.
having that escapism still present without the drama, without the politics, without the whatever. Like, I read comics a lot of times for that escapism, because I look out
Hmm.
my window, as it's right here, and I work from home, so I'm constantly looking out the literal window, and
Yeah.
also like the metaphorical one on screens. But it's just like everything is burning and everything seems awful and no one seems happy, and it doesn't matter what color, what creed, what background, what side, whatever, everybody
Yeah.
is angry. And I'm just like, can we just like be nice to each other
Yeah.
and like bond over I love doing this show because I get to talk to people that have all different sorts of backgrounds, but I know that we all love comics. And so like,
Yeah.
if we can just talk comics, cool. And I've had people on here that I'm like, I don't agree with what you're saying, but like, that's okay, because we're
Yeah.
all human and we're all different, and like we should be different. Because if
Yeah.
you're all the same, that'd be terrifying. I don't want all OCD people like me out
Yeah.
there. Like, no,
I don't need any more me.
no,
I got enough of me here. We're good.
right,
We're fine.
right. So, all right. So we've talked all of the BentBox comics, and this is, I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything here.
Yeah.
You are doing an arcade event. You're
Yeah.
doing a thing at Dave and Buster. Tell me about that, because that sounds awesome.
So, uh, this is another thing that John and I kind of, I'm a big fake it till you make it type of guy. I don't know if many other people are like that or have experienced that type of mentality, but that's just how I've done everything in life, basically, is pretend like I know what I'm doing when I don't.
Yep.
So, basically, we've been doing a lot of cons, and I'll just do a quick side note of what you said about like how you get to interact with a lot of people of different creed and color and background and everything. That's one of my favorite things about cons, is like just being able to talk. Like, it's fun having someone come up, see your book, and go like, "Oh, what's this about?" You get to chat with them, and then you walk them through the book, and then they're interested, and then they buy it. That's the best part. And then like later you get a DM saying like, "Oh man, this was really, Artificial One was really cool. Thanks. I'm gonna pick up more." Like, all these things that kind of just bring us together. I have no idea who this person is. You know what I mean? I don't have any background on them, but we just had a 15-minute conversation, and it was pretty chill. It was fine. I made money off it. We're doing good.
Yeah.
So
Win-win.
like win-win. You know what I mean? So I really like doing cons because of that, because we kind of just get to hang out. Anyway, all that said, because we've been doing a lot of cons, I didn't go to business school. Once again, fake it till you make it. I just kind of like, I'm an idea guy. And before comics, I had no idea how to make any of those ideas a reality. I just failed at everything. So thankfully, comics are working so far. But the idea guy part of me went, I've been to a lot of cons locally, and this one guy, I won't shout him out because I'm not a huge fan of his cons. But anyway, I know how much my table costs. I'm at an event. I got a minute to go to the bathroom. I'm going to go ask the hotel lobby how much it costs to rent this room out that we're currently in. $2,100. Okay, interesting. For the day, cool. I do some quick math. There are 72 vendors here. I'm like, he made some money today. Dadgum. Obviously, there's a lot more involved with that, you know, advertising, paying for celebs to show up, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But still, it definitely tweaked my interest. I'm going to keep rolling with that one.
I love it. Yeah. Own it.
So, yeah, I'm owning it. So fake it till you make it. So definitely tweaked my interest. And I was like, I'm curious as to what this would be like. And then one day I'm going to try and not take too long, but one day I'm at a Dave & Buster's. I don't know if you're familiar or have a lot around you, but I was with my kids just on a Saturday after a soccer game. I coach my son's soccer league. So we're just there. I'm in like grassy, dirty, sweaty, junk clothes.
Yeah.
And we're just having fun. And I walked past the function room, which was, it's just a large conference hall type room. And I just look at my wife and I was like, I wonder if a con could fit in there. And Sable, my wife, she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'll be right back. And that was just it. That was just a nugget of an idea. And I went right up to the front desk and I said, hey, is your general manager around? And she's like, yeah, why? I was like, I just have a question. Yeah. General manager came out. Thankfully, she was there. Jesse, who works at the Fort Myers location. And I said, hey, have you ever thrown a Comic-Con at one of your locations, like a Dave & Buster's? And she like pondered for a second and said, no, we've never done that. And I was like, okay, would you wanna? And she like looked at me and she goes, that sounds kind of fun. And I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Yep.
And thankfully I even asked, I was like, are you familiar with like Comic-Cons? And it's one of these like divine intervention type situations of just like, yeah, I love Comic-Cons. We go, my family goes to Comic-Cons all the time. Like, sweet. So the deal. I don't have to explain things to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just basically me saying, hey, I'm interested in throwing some local Comic-Cons. I think this would be a really cool idea. If you're interested, let's do it. And her reaction was like, she walked me through the whole building and was like, yeah, let's do it here. And she started like planning it, like as if she got excited. And her getting excited was just like the most exciting thing. I was so excited. So then it just turned into, I had a meeting with Dave & Buster's of America to discuss what it is. They've never done one before. So we are now throwing the first ever con at the arcade at a Dave & Buster's locations in Fort Myers, Florida. So it's going to be a Comic-Con that I'm throwing on it's going to have a bunch of local artists, artisans type stuff, like woodworkers and all the different toy vendors, stuff like that, collectibles.
Yep.
We will also be tabling because of course naturally. So it's going to be a really cool event. And I had a very candid conversation with Jesse, and I said, hey, my goal is April 27th. The con's on April 26th of this coming month. I said, the next day, I want you to look through and go, oh man, we had a 15% increase in food sales. We had a 20% increase in game card sales. And this was a good event for us to have. And I said, and that's when I'm going to reach back out and say, we're doing one in October, right? And you're going to say, and she was like, I'm going to say, yeah. And I'm like, and here we are. I'm a salesman, I guess.
That's ABC, man. Always be closing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I told her, I said, my goal is, because she wanted it during off season, because season's great. It's an arcade. Everyone's there. They do well.
Yeah.
She said, if we have it during off season, it incentivizes us to do this, to save a whole Saturday for an event. And I told her, I said, then my goal is to be the company that throws con at the arcade at Dave & Buster's. Like, that's just who I am. And I want to still do comics. Obviously, that is our main function as a company.
Yeah.
But the idea that we can also almost like supplement our creation of comics by throwing Comic-Cons is just, why not kind of situation, to where I'm like, hey, Austin, Texas, Dave & Buster's, in August, we'll be there, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool. So it's definitely has the potential to open some doors. I'm praying it goes well. We have not done it yet. So it is April 26th. I have banners made. I have flyers made. They're everywhere. We're in theory going to be on the news. It's going to be covered.
That's awesome.
We'll see. Fingers crossed.
That is so punk rock of you.
It's fun.
Awesome.
I'm so excited about it. And like the more I think about it, the more excited I am. And I've told people, I was like, tell me what is going to happen. Like, bring me back down. Like, that's how I have to ask my wife.
Yeah.
And she goes, what do you mean? I was like, I can't see it not being good. I was like, I can't see it not going well.
Yeah.
I can only see awesomeness happening. And I'm like, I need someone to like kick me in the nuts with a, what if this happens? And then I have to plan for it. I was like, I need that. Cause right now I'm just like cloud nine. Everything's perfect. So anyway, if you have any kick me in the nuts ideas, send them my way.
Great.
Otherwise, we're going to have a really cool event April 26th.
That's cool. Hey, if you do and you want to expand, I don't know, to Cincinnati, Ohio market or whatever, we've got like 4 Dave and Buster's. So I'm just saying,
that
like,
is the idea.
Well, you know, it could happen.
I mean, I'm from all my family's in Pennsylvania, so like we're not. I like right on the border of Pennsylvania and Ohio.
Yeah, you're basically on the way. You can just.
I've flown into Cincinnati. Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with the area, so yeah, I'd be down. So that's the idea. We'll see.
I love it. I love conventions, and without going on my complete dissertation about why conventions are the best damn thing there is, like it's that same thing with the show, doing the show of like everybody's different, but we all love comics. And you put that in a convention in a giant room with all these people of like, I like comics. You're selling comics. Maybe I can buy your comics. Maybe I can buy their comics. And then if comics aren't your thing, like that's okay. Cause you know, there's always like the anime section or like manga or, you know, collectibles and Funko. Cause I have a bajillion of them. And like, there's something for everybody and everybody's got their thing. And cons for me are like where people can be the most version of themselves. And like, I don't know how else to say it, but like be the most you. And I'm the most me here, but then like you put me in front of people. And man, I leave a con after walking 20,000 steps and back and forth. And I don't like large crowds, but dealing with the large crowds and talking to creators, I leave and I'm like, blah, 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 like so much energy. My wife is like, please calm down. Please. We just need to, do you want to get dinner? Let's go get dinner. And just
I'm the same. Yeah. I get jazzed. I'm a bit of an extrovert in that way. So like after this, I'm not going to be able to sleep. Because that's just who after I do a podcast, I'm just like up for hours, and I don't know, it's just I get energy from this stuff, so it's fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love like that all of these things you have coming. I love what you're doing in indie comics and for indie comics and for people. Like we need more positive indie creators. So thank you for being a voice of positivity. I have 2 more things for you. We're not fully wrapped up here yet, but
I'm
the
done.
First one,
I'm down. I mean,
you're like, I'm done. No,
I'm done.
Got it. The first thing is super easy. I'm going to take a screenshot and use that as the YouTube thumbnail, mainly because it makes my life easier. But also like you get to post too. So we'll do, I'm going to look pensive. 3, 2, 1. I'll take a few here. Love it. Work it. Great. Awesome. It was so good. We've had
I need a new author photo, to be completely honest. I don't have a good one. That like really pretentious looking off in the distance thing. I need one.
Yeah,
so
with the like gradient monotone.
I need one.
Behind
Otherwise,
you.
I'm not an author. I'm just some schmuck.
Yeah. I love it. Well, as any good schmuck is really good at talking, I'm gonna stop talking because doing the show, and I've already hit on it, I love talking and hearing from people that have different backgrounds and experiences than I do. And part of that is always ending the show as strong as possible. And that's not by me talking, that's by my guests talking. So if there's anything that you want people to hear from you or anything that you want to share, it could be about like, hey, go sign up for the pre-launch campaign for Refuge so that it can launch and be into the world. It could be about why having a bent box of comics is better than having a perfectly protected box of comics. The content specifically doesn't matter at all. I just want you to have a space to share anything that you want people to hear from you. So the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Everyone, thanks so much for listening to me ramble as much as I have. You know, the indie comic space is amazing. I appreciate everyone who supports us, who likes our ideas, who listens to us. You know, as much as I don't want to just shell out our own stuff, I have to just put some eyeballs on, like, Comics for a Cause. It's something we're extremely excited about. We would love to see it grow, and we would love to see people impacted, you know, positively with comics, in a world that, as the Chris #2 has said, that is just falling apart and kind of a dumpster fire. You know, you can escape with a good comic anytime, and thankfully we have a bunch for you to do that with. So feel free to come check out everything we have. Go follow Refuge Chapter 1 on Kickstarter. That way we can launch that bad boy, and just be good to each other, and then we'll be fine. We'll be chill. The end.
Perfect. Nailed it. I'm not going to try and expand on it. Hang out. I got logistics for you after this, but for anybody else that is watching and or listening to this, thank you for hanging out with us for the past hour and 10 minutes and 35 seconds. Appreciate having you here along for the ride. If you like this, share with your network and stuff. I've got all of the BentBox Comics links in this description. You can find the website for Comics for a Cause, or you can just do @BentBoxComics on whatever your favorite social media site is.
Everywhere.
They're there. They're there. So you can engage with them that way as well. Keep in touch. Make sure you follow along for Refuge so that you can find that book when it launches and be there on day one and give it a straight to the moon launch. Or that's how they say that, right? Straight to the
Yep. To the moon.
Nailed it. To the moon. And then, you know, you can subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. And if you are, thank you. Love you.
Yeah.
But that's going to be it. That's it for this issue. I'm out of notes, which means we're out of time, which means we're out of here. So for anybody that's watching or listening, go do what's good for you, punks. Read some indie comics. We are out of here. Let me end it. And then we dance until it ends.